The Tonight Show welcomed 7 unforgettable guests who stepped on stage in altered states. As the blue curtains swept aside and Johnny Carson opened with his trademark monologue, viewers saw smooth professionalism. For 3 decades, that polished rhythm never wavered on camera. Yet behind that calm exterior, a messier truth simmered backstage: anxious celebrities in unpredictable conditions. Carson sensed it instantly when a guest appeared, according to a producer from the 1970s. Within moments, he could read who was drunk, high, wired, or worse. His expression shifted subtly, half amused, half resigned, whenever he spotted trouble approaching. Though Johnny stayed cool under the lights, backstage chaos often churned. Staffers learned to spot red flags. Producers crafted emergency segment backups. Executives occasionally hovered near the wings, bracing for disaster. "We relied on quiet signals," one veteran staff member recalled. If Johnny tugged his tie during an intro, it meant our guest wasn't sober. If he straightened his cards twice, the director knew to keep shots simple in case things spiraled. These small gestures formed a system built to manage what audiences never imagined: A-list stars arriving under heavy influence. The 70s were another world, one producer admitted. Legends in film, music, and literature walked in so impaired they barely remembered their own introductions. Through it all, Carson had to make the entire performance appear seamless, even when babysitting someone experiencing reality on a different wavelength. One incident involved a beloved icon who stumbled so visibly that NBC nearly stopped the segment until Johnny convinced them viewers believed it was comedy. Another involved a counterculture figure whose chemical fog was so thick that Carson joked afterward, "Sitting next to him gave me a contact high." Today we're revisiting the most notorious moments when Tonight Show guests appeared far from sober, and the remarkable finesse Carson used to keep the show intact. But first, it's essential to understand why so many stars reached for chemical courage before facing late-night TV's most influential host. The Green Room, where fear met self-medication. Inside the Tonight Show's green room, nervous energy collided with open access to substances. According to a longtime talent coordinator, few people grasped just how overwhelming the pressure felt. Carson wasn't an ordinary interviewer. One strong appearance could rocket a career upward, and one flop could trail a performer for years. Unlike today's heavily rehearsed segments, Johnny insisted on spontaneous, unscripted conversation, which terrified many. This environment made self-medication feel like a quick solution. Some leaned on the generously stocked bar, others relied on pills or drugs brought by friends who knew their star needed to take the edge off. The bar itself became legendary, remembered by a staffer who worked through the 70s and 80s. Johnny approved top-shelf options, and while the unofficial rule allowed one drink, enforcing it on major celebrities was nearly impossible. And in an era shaped by Studio 54, rock star indulgence, and widespread cocaine use, many guests arrived already altered by their preferred substances, sometimes mixed in ways that became obvious once cameras rolled. A historian specializing in late-night TV summed it up: "The Tonight Show mirrored the cultural moment, including the era's permissive attitude toward drugs." Carson enjoyed drinks privately, but stayed disciplined on air, creating a clear contrast between him and guests who lacked the same control. Johnny could adjust instantly, one producer explained. If a guest was tipsy, he guided them lightly. If they were impaired, he simplified questions, steadied the pacing, and discreetly shortened segments to protect both the show and the performer. This flexibility became crucial as Carson encountered more guests who pushed the boundaries of acceptable on-air behavior, starting with a counterculture comic whose altered state became part of his comedic identity. George Carlin, the master of the mellow mind. During the early 1970s, George Carlin reinvented himself from clean-cut performer to counterculture legend, a shift reflected in his Tonight Show appearances. A camera operator who filmed many of his segments recalled how he grinned with that unmistakable stoner warmth. Carlin made no effort to hide anything. His laid-back gaze became part of his charm. With over 130 appearances, he became one of Carson's most reliable guests. Still, Johnny never appointed him as a guest host, even though many comedians earned that honor. A former writer explained why. Carson loved Carlin's brilliance, but doubted his dependability for a full show. What set Carlin apart from other enhanced guests was his clarity. Though relaxed, he remained sharp, funny, and fully capable of performing. George was what we called a functioning herbalist, a staffer joked. The cannabis didn't derail him, it fueled his creativity. Carson recognized this, adjusting his interviews with open-ended prompts that let Carlin drift into hilarious philosophical riffs. These wandering monologues became a highlight of the era, and wouldn't have existed if he'd come on completely sober. Carlin later confirmed the obvious in his autobiography. Was I usually stoned during my Carson spots in the 70s? Of course I was. It was the 70s, and I was George Carlin. But Carlin's control only highlighted how quickly things could turn when substance use crossed from enhancement into genuine impairment, something the next guest embodied to a much more dangerous degree. Richard Pryor, comedy's explosive genius, unfiltered. If Carlin represented calm, Richard Pryor stood at the other extreme. His Tonight Show appearances could swing from razor-sharp brilliance to unsettling confusion within minutes. A stage manager who worked multiple Pryor segments recalled that he was hysterical until a sudden mental shift sent him into unpredictable territory. Carson often acted like a traffic officer, trying to pull Pryor back into the conversation before things drifted too far. Pryor's long battle with substances was widely known, and his on-air behavior sometimes reflected that struggle in real time. His cocaine habit deepened through the 1970s, ultimately exploding with his infamous freebasing incident in 1980. Across multiple Tonight Show visits, viewers saw him at various points along that decline. A 1978 appearance kicked off normally with Pryor chatting about new projects. Soon after, though, a childhood joke unraveled into scattered thoughts as his attention drifted, leaving the audience unsure whether it was intentional or not. Nervous laughter filled the room as he wavered. Johnny quickly shifted gears, a stage manager recalled, redirecting him with a fast question, cracking a cover joke and gliding effortlessly to commercial. It was subtle crisis control disguised as light banter. Carson's handling of Pryor blended admiration for his brilliance with quiet concern for his state. Rather than exploiting an impaired guest, Carson aimed to highlight Pryor's strengths while softening his rough edges. A former NBC executive explained that Johnny respected his genius and didn't moralize about the drugs, but he feared Richard was burning out. After especially chaotic segments, Carson even checked on him through friends. What made Pryor's high moments unique was their volatility. His talent stayed sharp, but his focus slipped, creating moments that hovered between comedic magic and production anxiety. Carson had his own method with Pryor, a producer noted, giving him room when he soared and cushioning him when he faltered. It resembled a seasoned trainer guiding a gifted but unpredictable creature. Yet even with Carson's patience, he had limits. Limits another guest would quickly hit when impairment crossed into outright unprofessionalism. That night felt like a double execution, taking barely 90 minutes from start to finish. Enter Truman Capote, literary legend, televised meltdown. Not every substance-fueled appearance produced comedic chaos. Sometimes the most shocking moments came from refined figures like the literary icon whose 1980 visit became infamous for all the wrong reasons. America's literary darling, completely gone, one assistant summarized of Capote's disastrous segment. Though usually sharp and witty, Capote arrived that January night visibly unstable from the moment he staggered out. A sound technician recalled that his speech was nearly intelligible. His head drooped forward, then jerked upright as though he'd forgotten he was on camera. The control room scrambled, cutting to Johnny just to keep the broadcast coherent. Unlike his playful adaptation to Pryor or Carlin, Carson responded to Capote's condition with strained professionalism. Viewers watched his smile stiffen and his questions shorten as he tried to rescue the segment.
Johnny was livid, his producer admitted. Once the commercial hit, he marched backstage and told the booger, "Never again, he's finished." What infuriated Carson wasn't only Capote's condition, it was the disrespect it implied. While Johnny tolerated manageable intoxication, Capote's cocktail of pills and alcohol left him incapable of participating. "There's a line between being loose and being incapacitated," an NBC executive said. Capote blew past it. His appearance prompted stricter backstage checks, tighter greenroom oversight, and ultimately earned him a rare lifetime ban. His meltdown became a warning within the show that even Carson's goodwill had boundaries. Capote represented substance use gone wrong, but others on the list were completely straightforward about their vices, none more so than Cheech and Chong. The announcer would introduce them with flair. Distinguished motion picture stars Tommy Chong and Richard Morin, better known as Cheech and Chong. They built their entire identity around cannabis, and they arrived exactly as advertised. "They weren't pretending, this was just who they were," laughed a segment producer who worked with them repeatedly in the late 70s and early 80s. What separated them from other altered guests was that Carson leaned into their state rather than hiding it. Instead of masking their high, he played the straight-laced foil, enhancing their humor. A former writer recalled Johnny acting clueless about their drug references, tossing innocent questions that set up perfect punchlines. It became a comedic dance where everyone knew the rhythm. During one visit promoting Up in Smoke, Chong spiraled into a rambling story, and instead of rescuing him, Carson let it breathe, sending waves of laughter across the studio.
Johnny was signaling, "Yes, this is exactly who they are," the producer explained. It wasn't mockery, it was authenticity. The contrast between Carson's clean-cut exterior and their stoner energy created some of the era's funniest segments. A cameraman noted that both sides respected each other. Carson admired their honesty, and they appreciated that he didn't sanitize them for TV. This approach reflected Carson's broader philosophy. He wanted guests to be themselves, even if that pushed network boundaries. His producer often said, Johnny's job was making guests look good. And for Cheech and Chong, that meant letting them be fully themselves. Two cannabis-loving comedians whose humor flowed directly from their haze. But while their persona aligned perfectly with their altered state, another guest showed how psychedelics could accidentally turn a talk show interview into a cosmic detour. Peter Fonda, counterculture hero and unexpectedly chaotic visitor. His 1970 appearance became legendary for its surreal detachment. He talked about time travel, a director recalled, summing up the 5-minute oddity. Fonda, already tied to the psychedelic movement, arrived seemingly under LSD, according to staff who witnessed it. From his first step on stage, something was clearly off. A camera operator remembered his huge pupils and drifting attention, gazing at the lights, examining his hands, then abruptly trying to answer a question long out of context. It felt like watching someone fade in and out of reality. Carson spotted the problem instantly and smoothly shifted into quiet damage control, tossing out simple questions, keeping his face neutral, and waiting for the earliest chance to wrap things up. The moment things snapped came when he asked Fonda about upcoming work, a routine softball meant to promote the guest. Fonda started talking about a new movie, but veered off into a ramble about time looping around us like a cosmic blanket and humanity surfing waves of consciousness. At that point, Johnny gave the signal, the director recalled, tapping his cards twice, code for cut to commercial immediately. The interview had barely hit 5 minutes of a planned 12. When they came back on air, Fonda was quietly gone, replaced by the next guest without comment. Carson carried on as if nothing odd had happened, showing the calm professionalism that made him famous. After the show, Johnny wasn't upset, just practical, said the director. He advised the team, let's bring him back in a year. Everybody has an off night. And true to that, Fonda later returned for calmer, more traditional interviews. The moment became part of Tonight Show legend, a reminder of how unpredictable live TV could be when mainstream culture collided with the era's psychedelic experimentation. But where Fonda's trip created accidental comedy, our next subject's substance use brought something much darker. Instead of harmless chaos, this time the issue was aggression that crossed from amusing to uneasy. Oliver Reed, the British Bulldog Unleashed, show just how quickly things could escalate when intoxication mixed with volatility. His Reed appearance in 1975 stood out as one of the most troubling, proving that substance use didn't always lead to laughs. "He made headlines, but no sense," said an NBC page who watched the meltdown. "He was drunk, maybe more, and Johnny went from entertained to alarmed in under 2 minutes." Already famous for heavy drinking, Reed arrived visibly impaired. His slurred charm morphed into loud, erratic energy. The stage manager recalled seeing Johnny's expression shift as Reed started shouting and interrupting, signaling this wasn't a simple buzz, but something unpredictable. The situation worsened when Reed started cutting off Johnny's questions with rambling non sequiturs and sudden outbursts. He even jumped to his feet and demonstrated a fighting pose, prompting crew members to tense up. "The room got tight fast," one cameraman remembered. Security edged forward as Carson quietly braced for anything. Unlike with friendly or impaired guests, Johnny took firm control, shutting down Reed's interruptions, steering the talk hard, and finally ending the interview early. Johnny had zero tolerance for threatening behavior, a producer explained. Mild intoxication he could handle, but hostility meant the segment was over. Afterwards, Johnny made it clear Reed would never return. That ban underscored the Tonight Show's delicate balance between unpredictable fun and maintaining a safe civil environment. Reed's appearance showed how thin that line could be, a contrast to the next performer rumored to ride much closer to, but not cross, that boundary. Sammy Davis Jr.'s electrifying 1974 appearance became legendary not for obvious impairment, but for the whispers that followed. His hyperactive energy had viewers wondering what was fueling the show's ultimate entertainer. "Cool on stage, chaos off stage," said a production assistant, capturing the contrast of the night. As one of Carson's most beloved guests, Sammy normally delivered charisma effortlessly, but this time he seemed supercharged. He was talking non-stop, bouncing in his seat, and starting new thoughts mid-sentence, recalled a sound tech. His darting eyes and heavy sweat added to the impression that something extra was in play. Many fans saw a wildly enthusiastic Sammy, but insiders recognized classic signs of mid-70s cocaine use. "Everyone backstage knew it," said the assistant. "This wasn't just natural excitement. This was boosted."
Carson adapted smoothly, letting Davis run while steering him gently whenever the story spun too fast. After cutting to commercial, he joked to staff, "I think I just got secondhand exhaustion from that one." But unlike others, Davis never lost control. He stayed funny, focused, and completely entertaining, just with the dial turned all the way up. Sammy was a total professional, noted the talent coordinator. Whatever he took, he never let it interfere with the show. Davis never confirmed the rumors, later shrugging them off with a grin. "Baby, the 70s were the 70s. Let's leave it there." His appearance represented a different category. Performances where substances may have amplified talent without tipping into chaos. Even when a guest arrived clearly altered, his mission stayed the same: deliver strong entertainment while protecting everyone's dignity. One of the main reasons he dominated late-night TV for 30 years.